I had been working within the community and would go on home visits on a regular basis. I would often come across cancer patients or people living with HIV and AIDS who were experiencing all kinds of pain and symptoms that we didn't have access to any kind of pain medication. It just wasn't available, it wasn't affordable, it wasn't something that the patients had any access to. So people were in the villages suffering, and it just felt like enough, it doesn't need to be like this. There was a couple of specific cases that awakened, I think, my heart and my mind to just how extensive the need was. I had gone on 2 home visits in one day to visit 2 children. It was with one of our social workers that I was working with at the time. And the first home was of a 2.5-year-old little girl, and her name was Flovia. She weighed about 12 pounds, and she was HIV positive. I found her lying on the floor of this little kitchen. It was a mud hut. She was dying. I was so moved by her, by her little life on this floor, and thought, I think we have to do something different than this. So, she was on the verge of starvation, and there were, many other contributing factors because of HIV and her being an orphan. But I went from her home to a second home of a child who was 14 months old, a little boy, very similar situation, HIV positive, again, severely malnourished, and just these little bodies and their arms and legs so wasted. And I just held him in my arms too and asked the question of, what does it look like? What does it mean to love in this situation? I came back from those 2 home visits that day, and I sat with David Tadrous, who's one of our national leaders, and another friend named Allison, and we just began to discuss the situation. And I just remember Allison saying, well, let's try. Let's try. And so we created this little treatment center in the clinic with 1 room and began to feed these babies every 2 hours.
She was really, you could think this child, we were waiting to be called at any time in the middle of the night that she passed away. But there was a secret. I think when you give somebody a total attention and you do what is in your scope and give your heart and attention and focus that person, something happens. And at the end of the day, we call it a miracle.
We did that for weeks and weeks, and after 6 weeks, little Felix, he went into respiratory distress, and he died very quickly. It was a painful loss because it was one that, we had so much hope and desire that it would be a different outcome. But we watched Flovia thrive, and she did learn to walk, and she began to speak 2 languages, and she would call everyone Mom, Mama. So she would call all the men, all the women, anyone in her life, Mama, because we were the people who were loving her and taking care of her. After a few months of care, she was able to go to a children's home, and now it's all these years later, and to watch the life that's still in her is quite remarkable for me. That experience of taking care of those 2 children, one that passed away and one that came back to life, very much represents what the living room is, where hospice is so often associated only with death and end-of-life care. I feel like we have a unique opportunity just to provide care, that we leave the outcomes to God. They're out of our hands, but as far as us doing the best with what we have in this place is what living room is about.